Hi, fourth grade friends. We are going to continue talking about fractional amounts. So let's start with food. I've got a brownie. If I had a brownie and you and I split it between two people, and I said, how much would we each get? I know y'all would say 1/2, just like that, right? Of course. But let's think about what that means. 1/2 means that I have one item divided into two parts. And we had to have some way to describe the amount that is. And this is how we do it. One item divided into two parts. The amount I get is called 1/2, right? What if we had one brownie, we were dividing it among three people? You immediately, or before I can even draw it, you've already said 1/3. I know it. 1/3. That's one brownie divided among three people. And that describes an amount. I can picture what that means. I can picture the whole, I can picture it divided into three parts, and I know how much one of them would be. So we're going to see a trend here with division and fractions. Let's keep going. Pancakes. I don't know why we always talk about food when we're talking about fractions. Really, you can have a fraction of an hour, but maybe they just make easy models or something fun to think about. Anyway, if you had 3 pancakes and you're dividing them among 4 people, how much would each person get? You've had investigations that are sort of like this, right? And I don't know maybe at first, but I do know if we were just going to take that one pancake and divide it among 4 people, person number 1 would get a piece, person number 2 would get a piece, person 3 would get a piece, and person 4 would get 1 piece. But there's more. So I guess there's enough for 1 to get another 1, 2. Yep, they all can get 1 more piece. And looks like they can all get 1 more piece. So say I'm person number 1, how much am I going to get? I'll get that and that and that. Well, how will I know what fraction to call this? I first have to figure out what is my denominator. If I wanted to name this piece, what would it be? It would be 1 of 4 parts. So I know it's a fourth, and there's 1 of them. So there's 1/4. What would you name this piece? The whole is cut into 4 parts. That's 1 of them. So it's fourths, another fourth, and another fourth. So I, number 1, if I'm one of the people, I'd get 3/4. 3 items divided among 4 people. The amount that you'd have if you divided 3 among 4 people would be 3/4 of a whole item. I guess mine would look kind of like that amount, right? Okay, let's do another example. Oh, this one we're walking, so no more food for a little bit. So let's say Janet, someone is walking 2 miles in 3 days. So she's not walking a mile a day. I can see that. So let's go ahead and use this time as our model. Let's use a number line because that really is easy to see. So let's see. It was 2 miles in 3 days. So let's go ahead and make our chart show the 2 miles. 1 mile, 2 miles. And it's being divided up among 3 days. So I'm going to make each one of these into thirds. So sorry, that's 0. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. Since I know I'm going to be dividing this mile among 3 days, that's why I'm dividing it into thirds. So it'd be 1 1/3, 1 2/3, and 1 3/3 is equivalent to 2 whole, right? And these are miles. Want to have that somewhere. All right, so I have to divide this amount among 3 days. So how many sections are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 sections in my number line. That makes it easy for me to see that if I was dividing this among 3, there'd be that, that, that. So each day, day 1, day 2, day 3, how much distance did she cover? She covered 2/3. So 2 miles divided by 3 days means that she's gonna walk 2/3 of a mile. That represents 2 items, miles, divided among 3, the days, 2/3. So we're looking for patterns in fractions and how they're relating to division. Exactly. So let's do one last thing to really have that pop out. 1 cake, oh, we're back to food. 1 cake divided among 5 people. And I think I'll do a circle cake. 1 cake divided among 5 people. Since it's divided among 5, I'm going to divide it into 5 pieces and make fifths. So each person would get 1/5, right? If it was 1 cake divided by 5 people. So 1 divided by 5 is 1/5. All right, what if I have 2 cakes? Let's do it here. How much would we each get now? I would have gotten 1/5 here, and I would have gotten another 1/5 here if I was one of the people. So 2 cakes divided by 5 people means we each get 2/5. What if there's 3 cakes? We're going to be very full is what's going to happen. I would get another 1/5. Okay, so if it's 3 cakes, 3 whole cakes divided among 5 people, how much would each person get? I get 1/5, 2/5, 3/5. Now let's just analyze that for a minute. What do you see? What kind of patterns do you see in these division problems and their fractional answer? Division, fraction. I'm going to be quiet for about 30 seconds while you really look at those and see how many things you can notice or patterns or things that you can notice about those equations. How'd you do? When I say, what do you notice? Remember, there's no wrong answer. You can say, notice there's a 1 here and a 1 here. Or you can say, notice they're all divided by 5. Or you can say anything when you're taking the moments to just ponder for 30 seconds even, and look for patterns. Just rehearse in your mind what you notice. And that's a great starting point. You might have noticed that the whole is on top, right? 1 whole divided by 5 parts. So the whole is always going to be your numerator or denominator? Your numerator. Whatever amount you start with is going to be your numerator. That would be the amount you have to begin with. In division language, it would be called the dividend, right? So the numerator represents or shows us what the dividend is, the whole amount. The denominator tells us what? It tells us how many parts the whole thing was divided into. That would be like know what it is? Divisor. The divisor also tells us in how many parts the whole is divided into. So we could write it like this: 1 divided by 5. We're so used to having the dividend be a larger amount, aren't we? But that's not always how it is in real life, right? Sometimes you have a dividend, an amount, and you're dividing it by more people than the dividend is. And that's why you're ending up with a fraction of a whole thing, because you don't have enough to give one whole group of 5. But we do know it's divided into 5 parts. So that's my denominator. And there's 1 item, so it's 1/5. Okay, so as you're doing your division and fraction work, I want you to be thinking about those things. Really think it through and see if you can notice the connection between division and fractional amounts.